Did you know that 1 in 36 kids in the USA are being diagnosed autistic, and girls are 4 times less likely to be diagnosed autistic? Now, that doesn't mean that girls are less autistic or fewer girls are autistic compared to boys. It's just that they don't get flagged, they don't get diagnosed, and therefore they don't get their needs met, and they grow up to be adult women like you and me without knowing that they are on the autism spectrum and going their whole lives believing that they are fundamentally broken or there's something wrong with them. Maybe you felt this way, that there's something different about you, but you couldn't put your finger on it. You may have diagnosed yourself or been diagnosed by doctors or mental health professionals with depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, or PTSD, just to name a few things. And it wouldn't even have crossed your mind that it might actually be autism, that you might actually be autistic and on the autism spectrum, because the stereotype of autism is little boys, or Sheldon Cooper, or the Rain Man, or Forrest Gump. But autistic girls exist. They just look different and act different, but that doesn't mean that girls are any less autistic than boys. You just don't hear about them the same because they're not featured on TV shows or the main character of some movie. And just so you know, if you haven't figured it out already, I'm autistic. I'm on the autism spectrum. My name is Ritu, by the way, and I'm a late diagnosed autistic. That means I only found out at the age of 39 that I am on the autism spectrum. And I only found out because my son presented very typical autistic and his kindergarten teachers flagged him. And as I was researching his autism, I realized, oh my goodness, I am autistic. The irony is that I have an honors bachelor's degree in social sciences like psychology, sociology, things that should teach you about people that don't fit into norms. And I've also trained to be a family constellation therapist. But I never, ever even considered that I might be on the autism spectrum. And I wonder how many others there are out there who would never even consider this because the stereotype doesn't fit them. By the way, I'm not a doctor or a medical professional. And what I'm going to share here is my personal lived experience and the experience of other late diagnosed autistic women who I personally know. So let's break this down. But first, I have to tell you that in this video, I'm going to be sharing 6 most common signs of autism in girls that don't necessarily fit the stereotype. And at the end, I'm going to share a quite private bonus sign that I haven't talked about at all on this channel yet, but it might help you to realize whether you fit these characteristics, you fit these signs or not. So I'm going to share it. Wait until the end. So sign number 1, stimming. Stimming basically means self-stimulating behaviors. These are things we do to soothe us, to calm us down, to make us feel safe and secure and comforted. And the stereotype in boys tends to look like hitting their head or flapping their hands or spinning round and round in one place or repeating a word or a sound again and again and again. In girls, however, the most common stims are hair twirling. I've done this for as long as I remember, and this is what makes it a stim. If you told me I'm never allowed to twirl my hair again, I would get a physical reaction of stress. I would feel stress and frustration in my body like a volcano and almost like I can't even breathe. The need to do that is not just, a fun, cute thing. It is a self-soothing behavior that I need to do just in order to get through my day. Another sign is hard or excessive blinking. So I know 2 women who I've known for years, decades, and they are autistic, only have found out late in their lives. One of them has a hard blink. So she will be talking to you and then she'll do this and then open her eyes and then continue talking and then again. Like she has this really long blink, and the other one blinks very frequently. So every 2 seconds she'll do this and then keep talking and then blink like that again. And I'm reenacting that here, but this is really quite a common stim that women and girls tend to have. Skin picking is another one. For example, picking the skin behind your nail. My daughter does this a lot. Or biting your nails to the point where they're at the stubs of your nails. You're not doing that out of stress or, a lot of people think, oh, that girl must be under a lot of stress or something must be going on. It just soothes you. You do it just to calm yourself down sometimes. Rocking back and forth, so rocking in one place or swaying side to side or rocking back and forth on your heels. And humming is another stim. This is not a fully exhaustive list. Obviously, everybody has a different expression of their autism, but these are the most common things that you can observe in girls with autism. Carrying on, the next sign is social difficulties. Not understanding social cues or social nuances. How this feels inside is this feeling of confusion. Like you're doing it a certain way because that's just how you've always done it. That's how they do it in your family. But then you realize that the rest of the world doesn't do that thing in that way. And you feel so confused. You feel almost betrayed. Like, how could this be? And this feeling that's created inside, that is very common in autistic girls. And the downfall from that is then you try to do everything in your power not to do things differently ever again. You do whatever you can, bend over backwards just to fit in. Difficulty with friendships. So girls tend to be a bit more valuing of friendships, but at the same time, they also tend to be quite cliquey. Maybe as a little girl, you only had your one best friend and didn't really fit into any other friend circle. Or all the other kids in your circle were also a little bit odd, a little bit outcasted, or a little bit alternative. Sign number 3, communication issues. Taking people literally. For example, I had a friend in middle school who was really weird. Looking back, she was definitely some kind of neurodivergent. And she was a pathological liar. So once she made up this stupid lie and she told me she could sing really well, but for that she needed to insert a little pill in her throat. And when she was done singing, she'd take it out. I mean, it's just completely outrageous, but my little autistic brain took her so literally, so naively, not just naive, but literally. And I tried to justify her story. I tried to visualize, imagine, logically make up a scenario in which this would actually be real. Not understanding rhetorical questions. Another example, in university, one of my best friends, we were hanging out and it was raining and suddenly there were hail, ice chunks falling down. And she's like, why is it hailing? And I launched into this whole explanation of why it hails. So I was like, yes, when the rain is falling, a strong wind comes and pushes a drop of water up into the clouds, above the clouds where it's very cold, and then ice forms around that raindrop and it falls down as hail. And she just looked at me like literally trying not to burst out laughing because she was just like, make a comment like, it's hailing. Whereas I literally thought she was asking me for the meteorological physics explanation of why it hails. Another sign with communication challenges is that often autistic girls and boys can be late in developing their language. Sign number 4, repetitive behavior. An example of this is music. So once I got my first Walkman, actually when I first got CD Walkman, I don't know what you call them, like a portable CD player, I once listened to the same song on repeat for 2 hours. Like, I kid you not. For 2 hours, I stayed up until, midnight listening to that song on repeat. I couldn't stop myself. Once I got into this loop, I just couldn't stop. And that wasn't the only time. That was the longest time because I actually checked the clock, but I had done that countless times in my teenage years. And I still do that now when I'm working, when I'm in my deep work. I have my one playlist of my liked songs on Spotify, and that's the only playlist I listen to. I don't want anything new. I want only the songs that I chose and are in my playlist, and I can listen to that that for 6-7 months straight before I get bored of it, and then I need to find something new. As a kid, I could read the same book over and over and over again. I could watch the same cartoon episode again and again. And later on as a teenager, I could watch the same show or movie again and again and again until I had all the words, the dialogue memorized. Sign number 5, special interests. Your special interests borderline obsessions. For me, growing up in India in the 90s, we had Channel V, which was like the MTV of Asia at the time. And I was obsessed with this one VJ, like this one personality on Channel V whose name is Trey Farley. And he did a show with this like imaginary purple dinosaur named Muriel, and they would talk, and like he was pretty cool and stuff. But I knew a bit too much about him. He was my special interest. Like I knew where he lived, which country he lived. I knew where his parents came from because he was mixed race. I knew where he planned on going to university. I knew what his favorite color was. I mean, this is borderline obsessive. And this is where it gets a bit more autistic. It's not just that I knew everything about him. I started to imagine myself as part of his life or his universe, and him as part of my universe. For some of my friends, it was the Spice Girls. They knew a bit too much about the Spice Girls or the Backstreet Boys or some other celebrity. Sign number 6, sensory sensitivities. I know that's a mouthful, but growing up, maybe you were extra sensitive to a couple of things, specifically touch. For example, maybe there were certain fabrics that you just couldn't wear. It felt like it was scratching your skin. Your mom always had to cut out the tag from your shirt. Or you could only wear certain pairs of socks and no other socks would work. Maybe you were extra sensitive to smells. For example, the smell of air freshener in a car or the leather in a car that would just make you completely nauseous. I know somebody, until she was in her 20s, every time she got into a car, the smell and the movement, the two things combined, she would throw up. You might have been sensitive to light. Certain lights like fluorescent light, the tube lights might have really hurt your eyes, and you preferred that yellow bulb light instead. Maybe you're sensitive to sounds and you remember comments that your parents might have made that, oh, she always heard the ambulance outside, or she could hear the helicopter outside even before anybody else could. And the thing with being extra sensitive to your senses is that whereas other people wouldn't be bothered by all these things, it overwhelmed you. Just to give you an example, my son in school, whenever he's in a closed environment where the sound level is rising, he can't differentiate one sound from another, and he gets so overwhelmed, he has a panic attack. Maybe you felt this way before too, when it comes to all your senses just overwhelming and overpowering you. Finally, the bonus sign. But before I tell you that, I have to tell you something. I'm going to stop posting on this channel at the end of 2024. I launched it at the beginning of the year when I just had learned that I'm on the autism spectrum, and this year has been dedicated to learning everything I could about it, understanding, accepting it within myself, and sharing that knowledge and information with you.
No, please don't say that.
As the year is wrapping up, my special interest has shifted, and I'll be launching a new channel in 2025. If you want to know all about that, follow me on my Instagram, where I will announce what that channel is all about and how you can come along on that journey with me. So now let's get into the bonus sign, and this is so personal, and I'm sharing with you anyway because I'm hoping that maybe when you hear it, you'll relate somehow, and you'll be like, okay, I feel that too, and that's not weird or that's not abnormal, and maybe that just might mean I'm autistic, and that's also okay. So here's the sign. It is gender fluidity. A lot of autistic women I know, and myself included, have felt attracted to other women before. And that's in addition to obviously being attracted to boys. So it's a bit funny to share, but I'm going to share with you 2 stories. One is of a mentor of mine who I really admire. I followed her for about 15 years, and and she openly talks about it. Early on in her early 20s, she felt attracted to a coworker of hers who was female, and she had this huge mega crush on her. And when she realized that that coworker would never reciprocate her feelings, she absolutely got completely crushed and destroyed and depressed. Not that she is bisexual. I don't think she's been in a relationship with another woman, or maybe she's had one, but now she's married to a man, for example, and they have a daughter together. And my personal experience. So after graduating from university, I traveled around Europe with a couple of friends of mine for a couple of months. And together we went to visit one of my friend's cousins in Berlin. And the cousin was female, obviously. So I'm about like 22 at this age. And when I met her, I felt really strangely attracted to her, like a really physical attraction. And I was in shock. I was like, oh my God, what's happening to me? I am attracted to a girl. Like, what's going on? Am I a lesbian now? But I don't know. I mean, I couldn't explain it. It was this like real physical attraction. Of course, I didn't say anything to her because she was from a cultural background that is not so open-minded to, sexuality differences. And I didn't want to weird my friends out and be like, hey, I think your cousin's hot. I wasn't going to do that. And the thing is, she wasn't even that hot. Like, she wasn't that attractive, but I was really attracted to her. And this is not a one-off scenario. I know so many autistic women and girls who have at one point been attracted to another person who also happens to be a girl. So being autistic and having these strange gifts and super sensitivities and also challenges can make you feel weird or broken somehow. This is how I felt about myself my whole life. And if I had known that it's actually autism, that I'm on the autism spectrum, I wouldn't have felt so broken or so weird. I would have just known that, yeah, I'm different, and that's totally okay. I hope this video has made you rethink the stereotypes of being autistic. And if you feel like you still can't find a label that fits, then my friend, you might have ADHD as well as autism, which I do. And this video right here is going to help you figure out whether that's true for you or not.